by the time tomorrow is done. Did everybody see their mistakes?
Yes.
Okay, usually it's little things. Did you see that it wasn't 9, I think? 9x on that one?
2 times
4. All right. So,
2 times 4 is 4.
without any further ado, number one, we want to graph this particular interval. And the first thing I want you to recognize about this interval is that it's a bounded interval. By bounded, it's got a beginning and an end. So -4 is one end, 1 is the other. Which circle do I fill in? The 1. How come you know to fill in the 1?
Because it's the line, you have the extra ink.
Right. It's allowed to equal it. You take the extra ink from the bottom, fill it in. And then this is very important, and I say this almost all the time. Make sure it's obvious that your line is thicker than the number line. Some people are so hung up on being neat that I can't tell that you actually connected those points. So please make sure you do that. Otherwise, I can't give you credit. Next. Uh-oh, it says or. What song do you think of when it says or?
Walk like an Egyptian.
Walk like an Egyptian. That's exactly right. So it's greater than 3, or it's less than or equal to means fill it in, -2. Okay, any questions? Yes. Yeah, because look what it says. It says x is greater than 3. If I went this way, I would be less than 3. All right? Well, it's kind of like I took this one and made it first and this one and made it second, but the order doesn't matter because you're still dealing with numbers that are greater than 3 or less than or equal to -2. And these numbers in the middle are not. Only the numbers that are greater than 3 are out here. It doesn't matter if I write x is greater than 3 first or second. Okay? You sure? Got a very blank look on your face right now. You okay? All right. Now, let's go to number 2. And what's so nice about this question is, in order to get this question correct, you need to know all the laws of exponents, plus you also need to know the order of operations. So, the first thing I'm going to do is cube this, and that gives me 27x to the 9th. Please check on your paper, make sure you have that, because from having graded a lot of papers, if there's a mistake made, this is it's probably the most likely place for kids to make a mistake. Now I'm going to multiply that by 2x, which brings me up to 54x to the 10th, over 6x to the 8th. So far, so good? Okay. 6 goes into 54 9 times, subtract exponents, and I'm going to get 9x squared. How many people got that right? Okay, I see just about every hand in the room up. Good. If there's issues, extra help tomorrow morning, I'll be here. Extra help at the library tonight, but I really don't expect it to be too thick tonight because there's no relearn packets, there's no retests. Tonight's a night where I tend to think there won't be that many kids there. Negative exponent. Yes.
Are we gonna get a receipt?
No. No, I have to have the grades in by 2:50 tomorrow. So there's simply no time for it. Well, you do know that I announced that before the test, right? You know I announced that multiple times before the test. Yeah.
I did not hear it.
Yeah. Well, that's not I'm not the problem on that one.
Wait,
Okay. All right. I would say that by and large, most kids got either their best grade of the quarter or in the neighborhood of their best grade of the quarter. So, I mean, there might be some kids who had 96s and 98s and 100s on other tests who got 92s and 94s. That's still pretty good. But there were lots of kids who've been typically getting 68, 72, 74 who got 85, 86, 88, 92. So that looked good. Yes?
Are we gonna get our grades back in the retest in a second?
They are sitting right here, and Alex has a test he's doing in the back, and I have one other student who's doing a retest today that I can think of. And then tomorrow, I want to empty this because it's getting very annoying sitting on my desk. Mary looks at it and like just twitches, knowing how much it's annoying. Mary, tell me how much neater that looks. Are you with me there? Okay. All right, so listen, the negative exponent, I flip it, reciprocal, 5/4, square both, 25/16. Okay, so yesterday we started talking about word problems, and here we have a word problem. And the first thing that I want to emphasize is that in English, there's this very real thing called writer's block. Yes?
What do you do to B?
What do I do to B? Oh, it just got deleted. So, there's, in English, there's this very, very real thing called writer's block. I am sure that you have experienced it. And it is my opinion now, after a whole lot of years of doing this stuff, that in mathematics we have math block. We just don't give it the formal designation that we do writer's block. It's basically the feeling of any student answering a question and they don't know where to start. Same exact thing could be said, here's one that I think you will identify with, clean your room. And I think you get clean your room block. Ever been there, done that? Right, where you're like, I can't, it's not messy, right? No, not a chance. Okay, now, with math block, there's several pieces of advice that in particular case I think are helpful. And one of them is, if you're reading a problem that says anything to do with a shape, always draw the shape. So this has to do with a rectangle, so we're going to draw the rectangle. The theory is this: the more you can see the problem, the more tangible it is, and the less abstract. Abstract means you got to like draw it up in your mind. The more you can touch it, see it, feel it, the easier it is to comprehend. And the more you just put it in a figment of your mind, the more difficult it is to work with most of the time for most people. Now, so the first step was, if they start, we're setting the problem up. We always set it up first. If it says shape, we draw a shape. We'll do a different kind of setup in a few minutes. Then we're going to read the problem through once just to get a general overview of the problem. Length of the rectangle is 5 less than twice the width. Perimeter is 38. Find the dimensions. Then we're going to go into our strategy. And our strategy is to not look at the totality of the question. Instead, what we want to do is find a piece of it and use that piece, cross it off. Find another piece, use that piece, cross it off, until we've used up all the information and the only thing left are the instructions or the directions. So, somebody tell me something up here that they can use as a piece of information. Phoebe?
The rectangle is 5 less than twice the width.
The length of the rectangle, right. So I'm going to let the width be W. How do I write 5 less than twice the width? Everybody? 2W minus 5. Now here's the thing that a lot of students don't do that I really hope you learn to do. Cross that out. Now, you may be, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand because it can be considered a little embarrassing, but some people really are good at word problems. I would consider myself a good word problem student when I was in high school, and also in college. I mean, I majored in math, so I better be pretty good at them. But there were times when I would be doing a word problem at some levels, and I would get completely stuck. I would not know where to go. And then I would resort to this. So if you don't like necessarily crossing everything out, if you look at a problem like this and you're like, man, this is really easy, then don't necessarily apply this strategy on an easy question. But as you encounter one where you're like, I don't know what to do, I don't know where to start, and you get your math block, this is how you start, and this will really help you out. Okay, if the perimeter of the rectangle is 38, now what's the big word in there?
Perimeter.
Perimeter. What does perimeter mean?
The outside.
Add up all the sides. So I'm going to get rid of the perimeter part. I'm going to add up all the sides. There's a W, a 2W minus 5. Now is that all the sides? No, there's another W, and there's another 2W minus 5. So I'm going to add another W, and I'm going to add another 2W minus 5. And if I put them all together, I use my last piece of information there, equals 38. And what I find really cool about this is twofold. First off, the only thing left are the directions. When you've used every piece of information except for the directions, then to me, what that means is that there's nothing else to use, so I have to have everything I need. Now, the next thing is, the minute you do that, you more or less have half credit. So let's say this was worth 5 points, you would have 2 out of 5. And now each step that you do right is worth more points. And once you get an equation that looks like this, don't you know how to do this? So from this point forward, you do really well. Now, when we talk about math block, the problem with word problems and math block is this. Some kids won't even begin the problem. And if you don't begin the problem, can you get any partial credit? No. So you take a bath on the question. If it's worth 6 points or 5 points, you get 0 out of 5. So we always want to pick something we can use in the information, write it down. Even if we're a little bit off, we're still going to get some credit for doing something right up here. And then, from this point forward, if you do every step right, and we should be good enough to do that, if this is worth 2 out of 5, then every step forward is worth 3 out of 5. So if you don't do the setup perfectly, so you get 1 point instead of 2 points. But from here forward, you'll get all the points, so you'll end up with 4 out of 5. 1, 3, 4, 6W minus 10 is 38. Add 10, die. 6W is 48. Divide by 6. W is 8. Now, notice what I circled before. I circled the instructions. Did I find the dimensions of the rectangle? No. What are dimensions? Dimensions are length, width, height. Okay? So if the width is 8, what's the length?
Oh.
11. 2 times 8 is 16, minus 5 is 11. So the dimensions are 11 and 8. And yesterday there was a question that followed up and said, what's the area? Well, 11 times 8 is 88. Only if the directions say it. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay? Big idea, math block. To overcome it, you draw the shape, use a piece of information, cross it out. Even if you're not perfect on your setup, even if you, like some kids here would write, instead they'd forget 2 sides and they'd write 3W minus 5 equals 38. Okay, so they only get 1 point out of 2 because it's a little bit right. Maybe they really blow it and they just write 2W minus 5 is 38. If that's the case, then maybe they get 0 out of 2 for that part. But from here forward, they get 3 out of 3. So they still end up getting enough to save the question and not take a bath on it. Okay. You do this one. I will give you 90 seconds to get that done. Go.
Well, thanks.
I'm actually going to put the problem up on the board as you're doing it because we're running a little short on time. You can check your work, see if you're right. Okay. Everybody gets 10 and 26? Okay. I see certain people packing up, and that shouldn't be happening. We've got about 4 minutes left here, and there's a new type of question we have to begin to digest. Are we ready?
Yes.
Find 3 consecutive integers whose sum is 21. What is a consecutive integer? Somebody pick their favorite integer. Kirsten, what's yours? 2. What's the next consecutive integer? The next consecutive integer is 4. 3. How'd you get from 2 to 3? That's right. So this says find 3 consecutive integers. So remember how we set up the shape problem by drawing a figure? Now we're going to set up the consecutive integer problem by writing consecutive integers. Ladies. Now, the first consecutive integer is what? I don't know what it is, so what do I call it? What do we always call it if we don't know what it is? X, n, whatever, unknown. Now, it just said to go from 2 to 3, you add 1, so what do you think you do to the x? Add 1. What do you do to the next one? Add 2. So it's x plus 1, and x plus 2. And then it says, so, oh, by the way, I can cross this out. Here's my 3 consecutive integers. What does it say next? Whose sum is 21. Well, how do I find the sum? Add them up. So I do x plus 1. There's my first one. There's my second one. What goes next? X plus 2. That's my third one. Is equal to 21. So altogether I have 1x, 2x, 3x. Plus 3 is 21. Minus 3. And I get 3x is equal to 18. Divide by 3. X is 6. Now, the answer's not 6. There's 3 answers. What are they? 6, 7, and 8.
So is it always the ones after?
Yes. Now, the next problem says find 2 consecutive integers. So the first one is x. What's the next one? X plus 1. The next problem says find 3 consecutive even integers. So if the first one's x, what do you think the next one's going to be? X plus 2, and then x plus 4. What if it said find 3 consecutive odd?
1, 3, plus 1.
No.
X.
X plus 2, x plus 4. What's your favorite odd integer?
3.
What's the next odd integer? How'd you get from 3 to 5?
2.
That's how. Whether it's even or odd, you're going to add 2s because it goes odd, even, odd, even, odd, even. You're always going to skip one and go to the second one. Okay? And then the setups are always the same. Okay? Are we good, everybody? Okay. Hey, how's volleyball going?